The dust storm hit without warning, turning the red desert into a wall of choking sand. Daniel Reed gripped the controls of his transport vehicle as it shuddered and died. 3 warning lights blinked on the dashboard before everything went dark. He sat in silence, listening to the wind scream outside. This was bad. Really bad. He was 2 days from the nearest settlement, alone in the crimson wastes where the temperature dropped below freezing at night. His radio was dead. His emergency beacon had maybe enough power for one transmission that nobody would hear through the storm. Daniel grabbed his pack, checked his water supply, and pushed open the door. The wind nearly ripped it from his hands. He needed shelter. Now. The ravine stretched ahead of him, its walls offering some protection from the worst of the wind. Daniel pulled his scarf over his face and started walking. Sand pelted his jacket. His boots slipped on loose rocks. He kept moving because stopping meant dying. After an hour of walking, he heard something that made him freeze. A sound that did not belong in a desert storm. A weak, whimpering cry that reminded him of a wounded animal. Daniel followed the sound to a pile of fallen rocks near the ravine wall. The storm had triggered a small landslide. He climbed over the larger boulders, and that was when he saw it. White scales, pale as bone, a creature no bigger than a house cat trapped under a rock. One wing bent at an angle that made Daniel wince. Blood dark and thick pooled beneath the creature. Its eyes were barely open, clouded with pain. Daniel knew what it was. Everyone in the galaxy knew what dragons looked like, even baby ones. The regulations were clear. Do not approach. Do not touch. Report and evacuate. Dragons were apex predators. They grew to the size of buildings. They could breathe fire hot enough to melt steel. They had destroyed colonies. Killed thousands. This one was dying. Daniel set down his pack. He should keep walking. Find shelter, survive, that was the smart choice. The safe choice. Instead, he knelt beside the trapped creature and started moving rocks. The larger boulder took 20 minutes to shift. Daniel used a piece of metal from his pack as a lever. His muscles screamed. His hands bled. The dragon watched him with those dim eyes, not moving, barely breathing. When the boulder finally rolled away, the creature made a soft sound, something between relief and pain. Daniel pulled off his jacket despite the cold. He tore it into strips with his knife. The dragon's wing was crushed, bones broken in at least 3 places. He had no medical training for this, no tools. Just field experience from years of living on harsh worlds where you learn to fix things or watch them die. He worked carefully, straightening the wing as gently as he could. The dragon whimpered but did not bite. Did not fight. Maybe it was too weak. Maybe it understood he was trying to help. Daniel used strips of his jacket and 2 straight pieces of metal to create a splint. It was rough work. Probably useless. But it was something. The dragon was cold. Its scales felt like ice under his fingers. Daniel opened his pack and pulled out his emergency thermal blanket. He wrapped the creature carefully, making sure not to disturb the splinted wing. The dragon's eyes focused on him for the first time, really focused, and Daniel saw intelligence there, awareness, understanding. I know, Daniel said quietly. It hurts, but we need to move. He created a nest inside his pack with his spare clothes. The dragon was light, too light, all bones under those pale scales. Daniel settled it carefully into the pack and secured the top, so only the dragon's head poked out. Those eyes watched him steadily. The storm was getting worse. Daniel found a shallow cave further down the ravine. It was barely deep enough for him to sit up in, but it blocked the wind. He sat with his back against the stone wall, the pack with the dragon resting against his chest. He could feel the creature's heartbeat, fast and weak. Daniel shared his water, letting drops fall onto the dragon's tongue. He did not have much. 3 days of walking ahead of him, maybe 4 with the extra weight. Less water now that he was sharing. His emergency rations were meant for 1 person, not 1 person and a dying dragon. You better be worth it, he whispered. The dragon made a soft chirping sound. Night came. The temperature dropped. Daniel wrapped his arms around the pack, sharing what little warmth he had. The dragon's breathing was shallow. He told himself it would probably die before morning, that this was a waste of time and resources, that he was a fool for risking his life for a creature that would grow up to be a monster. But when morning came, the dragon was still breathing. Daniel stood, his body stiff and sore. He had 3 protein bars, 2 bottles of water, and a long walk ahead. The dragon watched him from inside the pack, those strange pale eyes tracking his every move. Right then, Daniel said, adjusting the pack on his shoulders. Let us see if we can get you to someone who knows what they are doing. He started walking north toward the settlement, carrying a broken dragon on his back. The sun rose over the red desert. His shadow stretched long across the sand. Behind him, the dragon made soft sounds, and Daniel found himself talking to it as he walked, describing the landscape, telling stories about other supply runs, filling the silence with words neither of them really understood. 3 days. That was all he needed. 3 days to reach help. He could do 3 days. 6 months had changed everything. The dragon now followed Daniel everywhere, moving on 3 legs while the 4th dragged slightly. The damaged wing tucked against its body. It had grown, but not much. About the size of a medium dog. White scales caught the sunlight when they walked through the settlement together. People moved out of their way. Some stared. Most looked away quickly. Daniel had named it Frost. Simple. Fitting. The dragon responded to the name, tilting its head when Daniel spoke, making soft clicking sounds in response. The wing had healed wrong. 3 different veterinarians had examined it. All said the same thing. Frost would never fly. The colonial authorities had other concerns. Commander Wilson sat across from Daniel in the administrative building, her face tight with barely controlled anger. She pushed a stack of papers across the desk. These are incident reports, she said. 23 complaints in 5 months. People are scared, Reed. They have children. They have a right to feel safe in their own settlement. Frost has not hurt anyone, Daniel said calmly. Not once. Yet it has not hurt anyone yet. Wilson leaned forward. Do you understand what you are keeping? This thing will grow. In 5 years, it will be bigger than this building. In 10, it will be able to level this entire settlement. Dragons are not pets. They are weapons. Daniel had heard this speech before. Different people, same words. He met Wilson's eyes steadily. Frost is not going anywhere. Then you are both going somewhere. Off this planet. By the end of the month, Wilson stood. Those are my orders. You can appeal to the Galactic Council if you want. Good luck with that. The meeting was over. Outside, Frost waited by the door. The dragon made a questioning sound when Daniel emerged. He scratched behind the ridge of scales on Frost's head, the spot that made the dragon's eyes close with contentment. Looks like we need to find a new home, Daniel said quietly. They walked back to Daniel's small quarters on the edge of the settlement. It was not much. 2 rooms, basic furniture, a kitchen he barely used. But it was theirs. Frost had a corner near the heating unit where the dragon slept, curled in a tight ball. At night, Daniel sometimes woke to find Frost watching him with those intelligent pale eyes as if standing guard. The legal appeals went nowhere. The Galactic Council representative was a tall, thin alien named Voss, who looked at Frost the way someone might look at a bomb. He spoke in clipped, formal tones. The regulations regarding dragon species are absolute. They are classified as extreme hazards to sentient life. The fact that this specimen is currently docile is irrelevant. Its potential for destruction is well documented. You must surrender it for termination or face imprisonment. No, Daniel said. This is not a negotiation, human. We are trying to protect you. Protect everyone. Dragons have destroyed entire civilizations. They cannot be controlled. They cannot be trusted. Daniel looked at Frost, who sat quietly beside his chair. The dragon met his gaze and made a soft sound, almost like a question. You are wrong, Daniel said simply. Voss left. Others came. Scientists who wanted to study Frost. Military officers who wanted to dissect it. Collectors who offered ridiculous amounts of money. Daniel said no to all of them. The settlement became hostile. People he had known for years stopped talking to him. Rocks were thrown at his quarters. Someone spray-painted Monster Lover on his door, but then something happened that changed a few minds. A child went missing. 5-year-old Tommy Brennan, who liked to explore and did not listen to warnings. His parents searched. The settlement organized search parties. Hours passed with no sign of the boy. The desert was vast and full of predators. Everyone knew what happened to lost children in the Crimson Wastes. Frost started acting strange that afternoon, pacing, making urgent sounds, scratching at the door. Daniel had never seen the dragon so agitated. When he opened the door, Frost limped out and started heading toward the desert, looking back at Daniel repeatedly. You know something, Daniel said. He followed. Frost moved as fast as the damaged leg allowed, navigating the rocky terrain with surprising skill. They walked for over an hour, deeper into dangerous territory. Daniel called back their location on his radio. Frost led him to a narrow canyon where the ground dropped away into shadow. At the bottom, crying and hurt but alive, was Tommy Brennan. They got the boy out. Frost had found him when everyone else had given up. The settlement doctor said another few hours and the cold would have killed him. Tommy's parents thanked Daniel through tears. Word spread quickly, some opinions changed. Not all, never all. But enough that the rock stopped being thrown. Still, the order stood. Daniel and Frost had to leave New Haven. Commander Reth arrived 2 weeks later with a military escort. Tall, armored, carrying weapons designed to kill things much bigger than dragons. His orders came directly from the Galactic Council. Non-negotiable, final. "You have until tomorrow," Reth said. "Surrender the dragon or we take it by force. Those are your options." That night, Daniel sat with Frost in their quarters. He had made a decision. Not one he wanted, but the only one that made sense. He could not keep running, could not keep fighting the entire galaxy, and he would not let them kill Frost. The cave system was 3 hours away, deep in the wilderness where people rarely went. It was large, defensible. There was water from an underground spring.
Game animals passed through the area.
Frost could survive there. Maybe. Daniel led the dragon through the darkness, carrying supplies, food, medical equipment, everything he could spare. Frost followed without question, trusting completely. That trust made what Daniel had to do so much harder. At the cave entrance, he knelt and put his hands on either side of Frost's head. The dragon looked at him with those pale eyes. "You have to stay here," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. But they will kill you if you come back. You understand? You have to hide. You have to survive." Frost made a sound, low, confused, hurt. Daniel stood and walked away. Each step felt like tearing something inside him. Behind him, Frost called out, a sound of pure heartbreak. The dragon tried to follow, limping on that damaged leg. Daniel kept walking. He did not look back. Could not look back. The calls followed him for a long time. Then they stopped. Daniel reached the settlement at dawn. His eyes were red. His hands shook. Commander Reth was waiting. "Where is it?" Reth demanded. "Gone," Daniel said. "Into the deep desert. You will never find it." Reth looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Good, you did the right thing, human. That creature would have killed you eventually. They all do." Daniel said nothing. He went to his quarters and packed his belongings. New Haven held nothing for him now. Within a week he was gone, taking a job off-world. He never returned, but he never forgot those pale eyes, that broken wing, the sound of Frost calling after him in the darkness. 8 years could wear down a person in ways that had nothing to do with age. Daniel worked the same job every day at Gateway Station, coordinating freight shipments between the human territories and the wider galaxy. Numbers on screens, cargo manifests, supply schedules. It paid well enough. Kept him busy, kept him from thinking too much. The station was massive, a wheel spinning in space where thousands of ships docked every day. Humans, aliens, traders, diplomats, refugees, all passing through, all temporary. Daniel had a small apartment in the residential section. 2 rooms, basic furniture. It reminded him of New Haven, which was probably why he hated it. He was drinking coffee in the station cafeteria when the news feed started showing the footage. Another colony gone dark. That made 37 in 6 months. The newscaster spoke in calm, professional tones about the swarm threat and ongoing evacuation efforts, but Daniel could see the fear in people's faces around him. The swarm. Nobody knew where they came from. Insectoid creatures that moved in massive coordinated groups, stripping planets clean. They had appeared in the outer territories without warning and spread like a plague. Galactic military fleets engaged them and lost, badly. The creatures seemed endless. Daniel finished his coffee and went back to work. Not his problem. He coordinated freight, not battles, but the war came to him anyway. Gateway Station started receiving refugee ships. Hundreds, then thousands of displaced people from attacked colonies. Daniel volunteered to help coordinate relief supplies. It gave him something to do besides stare at his apartment walls. The refugee camps filled the lower levels of the station. temporary shelters, medical stations, food distribution centers. Everyone looking lost and scared. He met a woman named Nina Foster in the medical bay. She was a xenobiologist, thin and tired, with dark circles under her eyes. She had escaped from a research station 3 days before the swarm overran it. They are not just mindless creatures, she told Daniel while they sorted medical supplies. They are organized, directed, like they have a purpose beyond just feeding. What purpose? Daniel asked. I do not know, but I studied some of the dead ones we recovered. Their biology is strange. Parts of it seem engineered. She paused. And there is something else. Genetic markers that remind me of dragon DNA. Daniel's hand stopped moving. Dragons? Maybe I need more samples to be sure. But it is like someone took dragon genetic material and created something designed to fight them. Nina looked at him. Have you heard the rumors? About white shadows fighting the swarm in some of the outer colonies? He had not. But something cold settled in his chest. That night, Daniel searched the colonial databases. Most of New Haven's files had been archived when the colony was abandoned 5 years ago. He found what he was looking for buried in old survey reports. Final wildlife surveys mentioned possible sightings of a large albino dragon in the wilderness. Last reported 8 years ago. Daniel closed the file. Frost was gone. Dead, probably. Dragons did not survive alone with damaged wings. It had been 8 years. He needed to let it go. The priority alert came 3 days later. Riverside Colony, an agricultural world in the border territories, was under swarm attack. They needed immediate evacuation. 3 transport ships were available. Military escort was not possible. All forces were engaged elsewhere. Volunteers were requested to crew the rescue mission. Daniel's supervisor looked at him across the desk. It is dangerous, Reed, real dangerous. Nobody would blame you for saying no. I will go, Daniel said. You sure? You are a freight coordinator, not a soldier. I am sure. The rescue fleet launched 12 hours later. 3 large transport ships, each capable of carrying 500 people. Daniel commanded the lead ship with a crew of 20 volunteers. Most of them were young, scared but trying to hide it. Daniel remembered being that young once. Before New Haven. Before Frost. The journey took 2 days through empty space. Daniel spent most of it reviewing Riverside's colony layout, planning evacuation routes, checking equipment. Staying busy, not thinking about white shadows or broken dragons or choices made 8 years ago. On the second night, he could not sleep. Daniel sat in the observation deck watching stars slide past. His datapad showed that old colonial file again, the one about wildlife sightings near Riverside. He told himself it meant nothing. The galaxy was full of dragons. Frost was just one. Probably dead. Probably. Nina found him there an hour before they reached Riverside. She sat down without asking, looking as tired as he felt. I have been analyzing more swarm samples from the refugees, she said. The genetic markers are definitely similar to dragon biology. Someone created these things. The question is why? To kill dragons? Daniel suggested. Maybe. Or to clear planets where dragons live. The swarm shows up. Dragons have to flee or fight. Either way, the planet becomes available for colonization or resource extraction. It would be a very profitable strategy. That is insane. That is business. Nina looked at him. You have experience with dragons, your file says. Back on New Haven. Daniel nodded slowly. A long time ago. What were they like? I have only seen dead ones. He thought about Frost. The way the dragon would tilt its head when listening. The soft sounds it made when content. The trust in those pale eyes. Smarter than people think, Daniel said finally. More than just animals. More than weapons. The ship shuddered as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Riverside appeared on the view screen ahead. Parts of the planet glowed with fires. Dark spots moved across the surface like spreading stains. The swarm was already there in force. The pilot spoke over the intercom. We have incoming transmission from Riverside Colony. They are requesting immediate extraction. The swarm has overrun their primary defenses. They have maybe hours left. Daniel stood and walked to the bridge. The planet grew larger on the screen. Somewhere down there, people were dying. Somewhere down there, the swarm was spreading. And somewhere, maybe white shadows were fighting back. Take us in, Daniel ordered. Fast as you can. The 3 transport ships dropped toward Riverside. Daniel gripped the railing and watched fires spread across the planet below. He did not pray. had not prayed in years, but he found himself thinking about broken wings and impossible choices and creatures that should have died but did not. "Hold on," he whispered to nobody. "We are coming." Riverside burned. Daniel had seen war footage before, sanitized images on news feeds, but nothing prepared him for the reality. Buildings collapsed in flames. Explosions lit the darkening sky. The transport ships landed on the colony's outskirts where the landing pads were still intact. Barely. People ran toward them in waves. Families carrying children, elderly leaning on younger relatives, everyone moving with that particular terror that came from knowing death followed close behind. Daniel stood at the bottom of the transport ramp directing traffic, keeping the panic from becoming a stampede. "Families with small children first," he shouted. "Move quickly, but do not run. There is room for everyone." Behind him, his crew loaded people as fast as they could. The other two transports were doing the same. They could fit 1,500 people total. Riverside Colony had a population of 4,000. The math was brutal. Swarm creatures appeared at the perimeter. Insectoid things the size of large dogs moving in perfect coordination. They had too many legs and mandibles that clicked together with sounds like breaking bones. The Colonial Defense Forces fired at them with plasma rifles. Some went down. More kept coming. Daniel helped a woman with 3 children up the ramp. She was crying. They all were. He moved back down to guide the next group when someone screamed. The perimeter had broken. Swarm creatures poured through the gap, dozens of them running straight for the transports. The defense forces fell back, firing as they retreated. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Daniel drew his sidearm, a small plasma pistol he barely knew how to use. He had qualified with it once years ago. His hands shook as he aimed at the approaching swarm. He fired. The shot went wide. Fired again. Hit one creature, which stumbled but kept coming. The swarm closed the distance. 30 meters. 20. Daniel stepped in front of a group of children who had frozen in fear. He fired until the pistol's charge died. Then he just stood there, empty weapon in hand, watching death approach. The roar came from above. So loud it shook his bones. So loud that everyone stopped, even the swarm creatures looking up. Something white dropped from the sky like a meteor. It hit the swarm advance with enough force to crater the ground. Creatures went flying, broken, burning. The white shape moved through them like a blade through paper, claws ripping, jaws tearing. A dragon, massive, easily 20 feet long, white scales reflecting the firelight. One wing bore old scars, healed but visible, a pattern Daniel recognized even after 8 years. "Frost," he whispered. The dragon turned its head. Pale eyes found him through the chaos. For a moment, everything else disappeared. No battle, no swarm, no fear. Just recognition. Just memory. Then Frost turned back to the fight. The dragon moved with terrible grace, protecting the space between the transports and the swarm. Every motion was precise, efficient, deadly. This was not the small injured creature Daniel had carried through the desert. This was something that had spent 8 years becoming exactly what it needed to be. More shapes appeared in the sky. Other dragons. Different colors. Different sizes. All fighting the swarm. But Frost stayed closest to Daniel, never moving far from the transports, holding the line while people loaded. Daniel snapped out of his shock. "Keep moving," he shouted to the refugees. "Get on the ships now." The evacuation continued under dragon protection. People ran up the ramps. Families reunited. Wounded were carried aboard. Daniel coordinated with his crew, checking numbers, making sure no one was left behind. The swarm kept coming, but the dragons held them back. Barely. Nina appeared beside him, breathing hard. She had been helping at one of the other transports. "This is impossible," she gasped. "Dragons do not do this. They do not protect other species. They do not coordinate like this." "Apparently they do," Daniel said, watching Frost tear through another wave of swarm creatures. A swarm flyer. Something with wings and venomous stingers dove toward the transport. Frost launched into the air and caught it mid-flight. The 2 creatures tumbled to the ground in a mass of claws and scales. Frost's jaws closed on the flyer's neck. It stopped moving, but Frost was hurt. Blood dripped from wounds along the dragon's side. The damaged wing was taking strain it was never meant to handle. 8 years of healing, of adapting, but some damage never fully disappeared. Frost still flew. Still fought. But Daniel could see the cost. "Last group," one of his crew members called. That is everyone we can fit. Daniel did a final sweep of the area. Bodies lay scattered, people who had not made it. He felt sick but forced himself to keep moving. The defense forces were falling back to the transports now, their ammunition nearly exhausted. Time to go, Daniel ordered. Get everyone aboard now. The ramp started closing. Engines powered up. Daniel was halfway up the ramp of the lead transport when he heard Frost's call. A sound he remembered from 8 years ago. The dragon was looking at him, wounded, surrounded by dead swarm creatures, and for a moment, Daniel saw that small broken creature he had carried through the desert. Go, Daniel shouted. Fly, we are safe because of you. Frost made another sound. Different this time. Not goodbye. Something else. The dragon launched into the air, joining the other dragons. They flew in formation, covering the transports as they lifted off. The swarm tried to pursue, but the dragons cut them down. Efficient, coordinated, protecting. Inside the transport, people pressed against the viewports, watching. Daniel stood among them. He watched Frost fly. That damaged wing somehow working, somehow strong enough. 8 years. 8 years of surviving alone. Learning to fly when it should have been impossible. Growing into something magnificent. Nina stood beside him, her scientist's mind working. She held a datapad, scanning images of dead swarm creatures they had collected during the evacuation. Daniel, she said quietly, look at this. The datapad showed genetic analysis. Swarm DNA broken down into components. Some parts were insect-based, others were synthetic. But there, highlighted in red, were markers that matched dragon genetics perfectly. Someone made these things, Nina said. Someone created the swarm using dragon DNA. They are engineered bioweapons. Why? Daniel asked, though part of him already knew the answer. To hunt dragons. Or to justify hunting dragons. Clear them from planets. Make space for colonization and resource extraction. She pulled up more files. There is a corporation. Helion. They hold mining rights to 17 former dragon nesting worlds. Worlds that were cleared by swarm attacks. Daniel stared at the data. Then he looked back out the viewport. The dragons were still fighting, driving the swarm away from the fleeing transports. Frost flew among them, protecting people who feared dragons, saving a species that had tried to kill it. They are the victims, Daniel said. The dragons. They are not the monsters. They are trying to save everyone. Yes, Nina agreed, and someone wants them dead to profit from it. The transports cleared Riverside's atmosphere. Below, the planet continued to burn. The dragons broke formation, scattering into the darkness. Frost flew past their ship one last time. Daniel put his hand against the viewport. The dragon's pale eye focused on him for a brief moment. Then Frost was gone, disappearing into the stars. But Daniel knew now. This was not over. Not by a long way. 8 years ago, he had saved a broken dragon. Today, that dragon had saved him. Now it was time to save them all. Nina, he said, when we get back to Gateway Station, we need to talk to the Galactic Council. All of us, with evidence, she nodded. They will not want to listen. Helion has powerful friends. Then we make them listen. Daniel looked at the refugees filling the transport. People alive because dragons chose to protect them. We owe Frost that much. We owe all of them. The transport jumped to faster than light speed. Riverside fell behind. But ahead, Daniel could see something new. Not an ending. A beginning. One that would change everything. Gateway Station felt different when they returned. News of Riverside had spread. Footage of dragons fighting the swarm played on every screen. People gathered in crowds, watching, arguing, trying to understand. Daniel walked through the crowds with Nina, carrying datapads full of evidence. They had 3 days before the Galactic Council meeting. 3 days to build a case that would overturn centuries of propaganda. Nina worked in her lab around the clock. She analyzed every swarm sample they had collected. The genetic evidence was clear. The swarm was engineered. Dragon DNA formed the base, twisted and corrupted into something designed to hunt its source material. But proving it was one thing. Proving who created it was harder. Daniel dug through colonial archives, old files, suppressed reports, things the average person was never meant to see. He found patterns, 17 planets cleared by swarm attacks, all of them former dragon nesting sites, all of them now held mining rights by Helion Corporation, the same company that had pushed for dragon extermination policies decades ago. On the second day, they got help from an unexpected source. A Helion employee, a human woman named Rachel Kim, showed up at Nina's lab. She looked scared, kept checking over her shoulder. "I worked in their bioengineering division," Rachel said, her voice shaking. 3 years ago, I signed contracts, non-disclosure agreements. They told me I would be imprisoned if I talked. But I cannot stay quiet anymore. Not after Riverside." She handed Nina a data chip. "This has everything. Design files for the swarm, communication logs, payment records. Helion created them. Used stolen dragon genetic samples from old colonial conflicts. They wanted a way to clear planets without having to engage dragons directly." "Why come forward now?" Daniel asked. "Because they are going to do it again. I saw the targeting list. 20 more colonies, all in dragon territories. Helion wants those planets clear within 2 years." Rachel looked at them with desperate eyes. "They are committing genocide for profit. Someone has to stop them." Daniel and Nina took the evidence to Commander Wilson, Daniel's old adversary from New Haven. She had transferred to Gateway Station 2 years ago. She listened to everything, watched the footage, reviewed the data. Her face grew harder with each piece of evidence. "This is treason," she said finally. "Helion has representatives on the Galactic Council. They have political protection, which is why we need the Council to see this," Nina said. "Public hearing. Full disclosure. Let the galaxy decide," Wilson nodded slowly. "I will arrange it. But you understand what you are doing? Helion will fight back. They have resources, connections. They will destroy you if they can." "They created a weapon that is killing thousands," Daniel said. "I think we can handle some corporate threats." The Galactic Council met in the central chamber of Gateway Station. Representatives from 40 species all gathered around a circular platform. Daniel and Nina stood in the center with Rachel behind them. Screens showed the evidence. Genetic analysis, design files, financial records, everything laid bare. The Helion representative was a tall alien with gray skin named Horvath. He sat in the premium section, flanked by lawyers. When his turn to speak came, his voice was calm and dismissive. "This evidence is circumstantial, easily fabricated. The swarm is a natural phenomenon, a plague from unexplored space. My company's mining operations in former dragon territories are legal and properly licensed. To suggest otherwise is defamation." "Then explain the genetic markers," Nina challenged. "Dragon DNA in every swarm specimen. Engineered modifications. Design patterns that match your company's bioengineering protocols. Coincidence. The swarm may have evolved by consuming dragon biomass. As for design patterns, I am sure any competent scientist could find similarities anywhere if they looked hard enough," the council murmured. Some representatives looked convinced by Horvath. Others looked skeptical. It was not enough. Daniel could see it. They needed something stronger. That was when the emergency alert sounded. Ships approaching Gateway Station. Fast. Military configuration. The council chamber erupted in confusion. Commander Wilson's voice came over the intercom. "We have incoming. Helion corporate fleet. 20 vessels. They are powering weapons." Horvath stood, his calm mask slipping. "This is unfortunate. My company feels threatened by these baseless accusations. We are simply protecting our assets." "You are attacking a neutral station," one of the council representatives said, shocked. "That is an act of war." "That is business," Horvath replied. "And business must be protected." The screens changed, showing external cameras. The Helion fleet approached in attack formation. Gateway Station's defenses were minimal, designed to stop pirates, not military vessels. The station's population was 500,000. Civilians, families, people who had no part in this fight. Daniel felt cold rage building. This was what corporations did. When caught, they escalated, threatened, destroyed evidence and witnesses together. Then something appeared on the screens that made everyone freeze. Shapes dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Dozens of them. Dragons. More than Daniel had ever seen in one place. They moved between Gateway Station and the Helion fleet, a living wall. And at the front, white scales catching the light, was frost. "Impossible," Horvath whispered. The dragons did not attack. They simply held position. A clear message. "Touch this station and face us." The Helion fleet slowed, stopped. Their weapons remained powered, but they did not fire. Nobody was that foolish. A new transmission came through. "Audio only. a series of sounds that were almost but not quite language. Nina's equipment analyzed it, translating the pattern. They are asking permission to communicate, she said, amazed. The dragons. They want to talk. Put them through, Daniel said. The sounds changed, became clearer. The translation software struggled but got enough. Images appeared on the screens. A history. Dragons living peacefully until Helion began experiments. Swarm attacks on dragon nests. Hatchlings killed. Entire populations destroyed. All for mining rights and profit. The dragons had been fighting the swarm this whole time, trying to stop it, protecting colonies because they knew where the real enemy was, and they had been blamed for it all. Horvath tried to speak, but Commander Wilson cut his microphone. You are under arrest, she said. All Helion representatives present. Charges of genocide, corporate terrorism, and conspiracy. Security forces moved in. Horvath struggled but was restrained. His lawyers protested, but nobody listened. The evidence was overwhelming. The dragons themselves were the final proof, their presence protecting the station from Helion's desperate attack. The Galactic Council went into emergency session. Votes were cast. Helion Corporation was dissolved. Assets seized. Leadership would face trial. Reparations would be made. And dragons were removed from the hazard list, recognized as sentient, victims of corporate greed, not monsters to be feared. Daniel walked to the observation deck. Outside, dragons still floated in formation around the station. Frost broke from the group and approached the viewport. Those pale eyes found Daniel through the glass. The dragon made a sound, not distress, not anger, something that the translator software labeled as curiosity. A message came through on Daniel's personal communicator, an official request from the Galactic Council. They wanted someone to serve as liaison between humans and dragons, someone the dragons trusted, someone with history. Daniel looked at Frost. 8 years ago, he had carried a broken dragon through the desert. Today, that dragon had helped save the galaxy from corruption. Tomorrow, they would build something new. Together. I accept, Daniel said into his communicator. He placed his hand against the viewport. Frost moved closer, until the dragon's scarred wing touched the glass where Daniel's hand rested. A connection. A promise. A new beginning. The moon had no name. Just a designation in old star charts. Small. Rocky. Hidden in a nebula where scanners could not easily reach. Frost carried Daniel through the clouds, flying steady despite the damaged wing that would never be perfect. They had been traveling for 3 days since leaving Gateway Station. Daniel wore a pressure suit and breathing equipment. Frost needed neither. They landed on a plateau overlooking a massive valley. What Daniel saw there made his breath catch. Dragons, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Every color, every size. Some larger than buildings, others small as Frost had been. They filled the valley, resting on rocks, perched on cliffs, moving in the sky. This was a gathering, a council of creatures that everyone believed were solitary monsters. Frost walked forward. Daniel followed, feeling very small and very human. The dragons watched him. Dozens of eyes tracking his movement. He could feel their intelligence, their assessment. He was being judged by an entire species. An elder dragon approached, massive, scales dark as midnight. Old scars covered its body from countless battles. It made a sound deep and resonant. Nina's translation software, which Daniel carried on his wrist, interpreted. You are the one who carried our kin? Yes, Daniel said. His voice felt tiny in this place. Many of us would have let Frost die. Easier than risking exposure, safer than showing compassion. The elder dragon tilted its massive head. You did not choose safety. Frost needed help. Many things need help. Few receive it. The elder moved closer. Daniel forced himself not to step back. Frost has told us about you. About humans. About a species that sees danger and chooses mercy. We have watched humanity for years, waiting to understand what makes you different. Other dragons gathered around, listening. Daniel realized this was a test, maybe the most important test humanity would ever face. We are not special, Daniel said carefully. We make mistakes. We have greed and fear like everyone else. But some of us try to do better. Try to see past what we are told to fear. You saved one dragon. That dragon saved you. Then you exposed the corruption that has hunted our species for generations. The elder's eyes gleamed. This is not small. This is the foundation of something larger. The translation software flickered. New images appeared. A history. Dragons had once lived peacefully among the stars. Then came expansion. Species that wanted planets, resources. Dragons were in the way, too powerful to fight directly. So they were made into monsters, hunted, driven to extinction on world after world. The swarm was the final attempt. Create something using dragon genetics, something that would hunt dragons and clear planets. Blame it on nature. Profit from the cleared space. It had almost worked. Without you, the elder said, we would have failed. The swarm was too many, too fast. We were losing. You are the ones who fought, Daniel said. You are the ones who protected colonies while being hunted yourselves. I just told the truth. Truth requires voice. You gave us voice. The elder dragon made a sound that the translator marked as approval. Now we offer you choice. The swarm is not gone. The main hive still exists. Deep in empty space. Helion may have fallen, but their creation continues. It must be stopped at the source. You want to attack the hive, Daniel said. We need to attack the hive. But it is protected. Shielded by technology we cannot easily break. Your species has weapons, plasma warheads that could pierce the hive's core. We need alliance. True alliance. Dragons and humans working together. Daniel thought about Gateway Station, about the Galactic Council, about people who still feared dragons despite everything. This would not be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever was. I will talk to my people, Daniel said. I cannot promise they will all agree, but I will try. That is all we ask. Try. As you tried to save one broken dragon in a desert. The elder turned and called out, a sound that echoed across the valley. Every dragon responded. The noise was overwhelming. A chorus of voices from a species that had almost been erased from the galaxy. Daniel felt the sound in his chest. In his bones. Frost returned to Daniel's side. Made a soft questioning sound. Daniel scratched behind the ridge of scales on the dragon's head. That spot that made Frost's eyes close with contentment. We have work to do, Daniel said quietly. You up for saving the galaxy? Frost chirped. The closest thing to a laugh Daniel had ever heard from the dragon. The return to Gateway Station took 3 days. Daniel spent them preparing. Nina would provide the scientific evidence. Commander Wilson would coordinate military support. Rachel Kim would testify about Helion's operations. And Daniel would serve as the bridge. The human who spoke for dragons. The Galactic Council meeting was tense. Many representatives supported the alliance. Others feared it. Old prejudices died hard. But Daniel showed them footage from the Dragon Moon. Showed them the history. The truth about what had been done to an entire species. And he asked a simple question. If we were judged by our worst members, would any species here deserve to exist? The dragons are asking for help against something created to destroy them, something that threatens all of us. We can help or we can repeat the mistakes that caused this crisis. Choose. The vote passed. Barely. Enough to authorize support. 3 fleets launched 2 weeks later. Human ships carrying plasma warheads. Dragon wings providing protection. They traveled together to the deep dark where the swarm hive waited. A massive bioship, organic, pulsing, growing. The battle was brutal. Swarm defenders poured from the hive. Ships were lost. Dragons fell. But the alliance held. Human weapons cleared paths. Dragon claws tore through defenses. Frost flew with Daniel's ship, protecting it through waves of enemies. They reached the hive's core. Daniel armed the warhead personally. Set the timer. 3 minutes. Frost grabbed the ship and pulled it away as fast as the damaged wing allowed. Behind them, the warhead detonated. The hive's core collapsed. The entire structure began to break apart. Swarm creatures across the galaxy stopped. Just stopped. Their coordination broken. Their purpose ended. They became manageable, defeatable. The tide had turned. 6 months later, Daniel stood on New Haven. The colony had been reclaimed, rebuilt, people had returned. The desert still stretched red and hostile, but now it felt like home. Frost lived in the old cave system, the place where Daniel had left the dragon 8 years ago. But now Frost visited every day, and Daniel made the walk to visit his friend just as often. They sat together on the plateau watching the sunset. Other dragons had started appearing on New Haven, building nests, living openly. Children in the colony had stopped being afraid, started being curious, started learning that the scariest things sometimes needed friends most of all. A young dragon hatchling approached, cautious, curious. It looked at Daniel with wondering eyes. Daniel extended his hand slowly. Let the hatchling sniff, touch, decide. Frost made an approving sound. The hatchling chirped and curled up near Daniel's feet. Nina arrived an hour later. She was documenting dragon behavior now, writing papers, teaching the galaxy what dragons really were. She sat beside Daniel without speaking. They watched the stars emerge. "You changed everything," Nina said finally. "One act of kindness in a desert. Look what it became." "Frost did the hard part," Daniel said. "Learning to fly. Learning to trust again after being abandoned. Coming back despite everything. You both did the hard part." Nina smiled. "You showed everyone that different species can understand each other, can help each other. That is going to matter for a long time." Daniel looked at Frost. The dragon met his gaze with those pale, intelligent eyes. 8 years ago, he had made a choice. To help something dangerous, something that scared him. He had walked for days carrying that small broken creature, never knowing what would come of it. Now he knew. The galaxy learned something that humans had always known. Sometimes the most dangerous things just need someone brave enough to carry them until they can fly again, and sometimes years later they come flying back to carry you. Daniel stood. The young hatchling followed him, curious. Frost rose and stretched those scarred wings. Tomorrow, they would work on establishing the first official dragon sanctuary. Next week, the Galactic Council would vote on formal recognition of dragon rights. Next month, students from across the galaxy would come to New Haven to study dragon behavior and communication. But tonight was just for this. For sitting with a friend under alien stars. For remembering a broken creature in a desert. For knowing that compassion could change everything. Frost made a soft sound. Content, safe, home. "Yeah," Daniel agreed. "Me too." They watched the stars together. Human and dragon. Proof that bridges could be built across any divide. That mercy was never wasted. That the scariest monsters sometimes just needed someone to see past the scales to the soul underneath. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly how it should be.